everyone, and welcome back to 5-9 Gaming. I'm the Platinum Chin here with, again, the homie Goresh to talk about the upcoming sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So far, there isn't much news on the game besides the initial trailer we saw, so we figured we'd discuss things here and what we'd like to see in the next installment and what could possibly be included. Now, Goresh, in the first Breath of the Wild, there were flashbacks revealing some of the story of what happened in the past during the timeline of the first game. Would you like to see something different in the sequel? Maybe something similar? How would you like that kind of aspect to be handled if they implement that?
Yeah, I think that they could definitely keep doing that in the sequel. I think that's one of the things that made Breath of the Wild feel so different from the other Zelda games. And I personally haven't finished playing Age of Calamity yet. But, you know, a lot of the things that, you know, transpire in that game reveals a lot of details behind, you know, the Breath of the Wild story. And I think that's actually supposed to tie into the sequel as well. So, you know, maybe the flashbacks will play into that game. So maybe they'll take their scenes directly from that game and they'll play them in some of the flashbacks as well. Because I believe that game's supposed to be like, what, 100 years prior to Breath of the Wild or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And I really think that the flashbacks, as well in the first game, they were really effective in helping adding a little bit of extra emotional weight to the story as well. I think that's something that they definitely intended to do, and I think that there's no reason why they shouldn't keep doing that in the sequel. Yeah,
I feel the same way. I mean, especially because the game itself, Breath of the Wild, as much as I love it, there wasn't a whole lot of exposition, a lot of story talk in the game. There was enough to get you by and understand what you're doing and what the importance is. Almost has like the original Legend of Zelda feel. Kind of like, here's a story, go save the princess. But but it kind of mixed in more puzzle solving with story elements, and I really liked that mixture. I thought that worked very well for the game. And like you said, it added emotional depth. And I mean, even I think if you get all of them, you get a different ending, I believe, to the game if you find all that memories before you finish the game. Yeah, so I would absolutely love for them to keep that and maybe even keep a secret ending in the second game, something alongside that.
Yeah, extra Easter eggs like that are always pretty fun.
Yeah. And then as DLC for the game, they actually included a bike to go around, which I never actually got.
I didn't get it either, actually.
I never actually got, but my brother got it, and it looked like loads of fun to play on. I mean, in the next upcoming game, would you want to be able to travel in different ways besides like foot, paraglider, and horse? Do you think maybe they should bring the bike back?
What about like the spinner from the Twilight Princess game? I don't know, like there aren't that many, like I guess the because I remember in Wind Waker they had like the Deku Leaf was like basically the glider of that game. They could maybe give you that as like a skin to the paraglider.
Yeah.
But like the spinner I think would be pretty cool. Sort of like instead of the bike, I guess, because it's sort of like, you know, it's just a hovering literal cog wheel. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And then maybe in addition to the paraglider, they can give you like one of those loft wing birds from the Skyward Sword game, so you can just fly around. But like they're obviously gonna have to like give some like repercussions to using that, because you can't just like fly everywhere. Right? It's just not fair.
Time limit, stamina limit, something.
So maybe it's like once you, I guess, sort of going back to like what Super Mario 64 did with like Yoshi, where you get 100 lives for getting all the stars.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like once you get like 100% completion of the game, you can unlock this and just fly around the world or whatever.
That'd be cool.
Or maybe like there's like some heavy restrictions to it. You can get it in the middle of the game. Like he has a very short stamina bar or something. I don't know. But I don't know, stuff like that's cool. Always, whenever they do throwbacks to older games, that's always I think fun to see in the newer games.
Yeah, make it maybe a challenge, kind of like how it was to get the increased Master Sword, where you had to go through the worst challenge in a game. I couldn't finish it. I didn't finish it. It was too hard. I mean, I played all the Dark Souls and I couldn't finish it. And something like that. And they could tie it into the lore of the game. So maybe it could be one of the Guardian kind of vehicles like the bike was, but it could be like a forever glider that you can actually like fly around in. Something like that you get just for doing like an insane challenge. Or maybe the game is more lively because you defeated Calamity Ganon, and maybe there's more life to it. Maybe there's horse-drawn carriages and stuff. Like give me Red Dead style. I can take someone's carriage and that'll make me go a little faster. I don't know, something. I'm thinking outside the box with this.
Yeah, that is outside the box.
But so I would like to see something. But if they didn't change it, it wouldn't ruin the game for me, honestly.
Yeah,
I'd be like, it is what it is. It's Zelda. Now, another question about it is the original game, Breath of the Wild 1, obviously, because that's what we're talking about. Ganon wasn't really a physical being until the last boss fight where he transformed into the giant boar. He was mostly floating around the castle the whole time. Do you think Ganon, or whoever the main villain is of the game, will take a more human-like form this time around?
I'm not sure. Again, I haven't finished my Age of Calamity playthrough yet, but there's this villain named, I believe it's Aster, in that game, and he's like the main, from what I've seen up to the point I've played, he's like sort of the main force behind like the story of the game, and he's the reason why like the whole story is even taking place. And I think his goal is like the destruction of Hyrule or something. And his design really reminds me a lot of somebody like Girahim from Skyward Sword, as well as like Yuga from Link Between Worlds. So he's sort of like from what I've seen, is like more of like a wizard type of enemy, more so than someone like Ganon, who's just sort of like just a brute force guy who transforms into boars, right? That's what he is. Apparently he likes doing that, because Twilight Princess also had that too, where he transformed into a boar. Yep,
same with Spirit Tracks as well.
Yeah. So I don't know why they like doing that, but I guess, again, I'm not sure the ending of Age of Calamity, but I guess he could be potentially the main villain of the sequel, or at least his actions lead to, unveiling what ends up being the main villain of the sequel as well. So potentially, if they end up making him the main villain, we could see more of a traditional villain, more so than like this Ganon concept that we sort of had for the first one.
Yeah, I feel like the one thing they missed the mark on in the original Breath of the Wild for me was more sword fights. I wanted to fight more people with swords, maybe some knights. I think a humanoid Ganon at the end is like this huge sword parrying boss fight. If they maybe change up the combat a bit to incorporate more sword clashing kind of stuff, that would
Twilight
be
Princess.
Cool. Yeah,
like the last fight of Twilight Princess is literally exactly what you just described, where it was Link and Ganondorf in like that circle, and it was like a ring, and they were just sword fighting.
Yeah, I think that is it. The combat's super fun. There's the dodging, the perfect dodging, slow-mo down. I mean, it's just one thing that I'd love to see added to it. And as far as the human-like form, I know in the trailer we saw that like decrepit, red-haired, like human-like corpse that was getting reanimated by like that dark hand. Now I've heard people say, "Oh, that's definitely Ganon," or Demise from Skyward Sword was also thrown up there. So people have thrown things around, and looking at both, we really will just have to wait and see at who they actually make it. I mean,
they can, because they've done this before where they've just redesigned characters. So that could be like a redesigned version of a character that we already know.
It absolutely could. Yeah.
So we don't know.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see it, and maybe they implement some more sword fighting changes, because that's just one thing I'd love to have, is some boss fights like that. As well, in the trailer we saw more of like a sky shot of Hyrule, and it looked like was the castle rising. I believe this kind of led people to think of like what's going on in the place. Like where do you think the game is going to take place? Do you think it's going to stay focused around the castle like the first one, or do you maybe think it'll pull something like Majora's Mask, where you're like in a forest leaving Hyrule, and all of a sudden you fall down into this pit and you're in a completely different world? Like what do you think?
I think they have enough to work with where they could get away with having it be the same sort of map, but different things in the map. It's not like the same exact setup. But I would personally, I think, more enjoy a completely different world than the one that we were used to from the first game. And I think that's one of the reasons why you just like what you just mentioned, why they did that for Majora's Mask. Like they knew, people spent so much time in Ocarina of Time playing through like the Hyrule in that game, that they decided, okay, let's change it to Termina, and then now it's a completely different world where the enemies are the same pretty much. The NPCs are literally the same models. It's like everything's the same. It's just the world is different. I think as long as they change the world, they can actually just keep the same enemies, and they can change the dungeon system, change a lot of other things, keep the enemies the same, keep the NPCs even the same. And I feel like that's enough of a change to where it's going to feel fresh enough to satisfy at least me. Some people definitely would not want the same stuff at all. Like there's people who are going to be like, I don't want the same anything. Like that's fine. People are going to say that. But for me, I think as long as they change the world to something else and have a fresh feel to explore, because we just talked about in the other video before, A lot of what makes Zelda so enticing to people is the sense of exploration.
Yes.
And if you have the same world, you don't really need to have anything to explore because it's the same.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think that's important for them to look at.
I really think so too. I mean, they could go the route of like maybe changing the landscape of the same area, because I mean, think of it as a developer standpoint. They built this whole map and it's like they use it for one game. I almost don't see them. I don't see them going to a new place, even though I would love it. Now, I feel like they might save a new place for that engine. Maybe if they did delve into remakes, like people have been requesting Majora Mask remake for ever since the game got released. So it's like if they did throw fans that bone, I could see them finally going to a new place with a new engine. I like you said, I would love a new area. I don't anticipate it though. I don't, especially because we see the castle rising in the trailer. Something else crazy is going to happen. Maybe some meteors come down, earthquakes, something changes up the landscape so that they can basically say this is a new place.
Yeah, and then something else to note as well is that in Age of Calamity, it's actually just the same map too. So
yep, that's is the same map, just kind of more restricted as far as movement and exploration. But Age of Calamity, it's so fun. It's such a fun game. And speaking of it, like in Hyrule Warriors, I'm not sure if you're this far. I haven't fully played the game myself. I've just basically watched the playthrough, watching my brother play it and looking at videos on it. But you're able to control divine beasts. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. So I've actually that's not just one part of the game. It's throughout the game. And I've done that. Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely different.
Is it gimmicky, or is it like, okay, I'm on board with it?
Yeah. Okay. There's like hundreds of thousands. There's like hundreds of enemies lined up, and you shoot them down. It's like I'm trying to think of like it's basically like you're in one of those giant, like in Star Wars, one of those like giant robots from Episode 5.
Oh, yep. The AT-ATs.
It's like you're one of those. Yeah, it's like you're basically one of those, and you're just like firing down like an army of people and just killing everything. I mean, that's what it is. It's
like being in one of those, but like the 10,000 Heartless fight in Kingdom Hearts 2 kind of a thing.
Yeah,
just
exactly,
mowing down.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I get that gimmicky, but for the game it fits.
It does.
Do you think that has a place in Breath of the Wild? Do you think something like that would make sense? You maybe think they will include kind of mobs like that just for the gimmick?
Maybe. I feel like maybe they're using it as an experiment for Age of Calamity, and then depending on what the reaction is, maybe they'll implement it. But something I will note with that is that if they do like add the Divine Beasts to have a major role in the sequel, because they're so connected to Ganon, because they were created, correct me if I'm wrong, they were created to seal him away.
Yes.
So if the sequel does bring the Divine Beasts back in a large capacity, that would pretty much confirm to me that Calamity Ganon's probably also going to be in the sequel as well.
Yeah, that's if they were included Calamity Ganon, Calamity Ganon. I have a feeling especially if it is Hyrule, they're not going anywhere. To me, they're going to be there. That's just where they are. They're in their four corners of the map, and I just don't anticipate them. Hopefully it's not the same thing where we have to go and rescue them again and have slightly disappointing dungeon-esque missions, but we'll have to wait and see. And then continuing on with Age of Calamity, I know you haven't beaten it yet. I haven't really played it, but I do know the end of the story. So we're gonna go with Garesh's opinion on this, and to keep this mostly spoiler free. But do you think the events of Age of Calamity will have any impact on the story of Breath of the Wild?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think there's a reason why they went so far as to specifically create a new story for that game. I know they had a story in the original Hyrule Warriors that didn't really have anything to do with the next game coming out, but this one seems more fleshed out to me from what I've seen so far. And while I'm not sure if the villains in that game are going to be directly related to the sequel of Breath of the Wild, I would at least expect some things that they're doing in Age of Calamity, like their actions, to like influence what happens in the sequel. So like that guy Aster, who's like, from what I've seen so far, looks as if he's the main villain of the game. Maybe he does something in the game that's I'm gonna put this curse on you, something's gonna happen in 100 years or whatever, and then that's finally gonna happen in the sequel. But I definitely expect it to have some sort of tie-in. Otherwise, it makes too much sense for it to have something to do with it. So I think usually in a series like Zelda, it's not super deep, right? So to me, it's just, it's pretty clear that it should have a relation in some way.
I think that's the most important thing you said, is that it's not too deep, yet they took the time to make an entire game. Now, maybe it's just because, Hyrule Warriors did well, let's make a new one, but they could have based it on anything. They chose to base it off the events that happened prior, 100 years prior. So I really think they are trying to push this to have a very large overscoping story for the Breath of the Wild 1, Age of Calamity, and 2. But I just... we'll just leave it at that because I want to keep it spoiler free.
Okay.
Well, and then I guess just last minute things. I mean, let's go over maybe nitpicky things. Like what are things of the game for the first one that you would want to fix? Maybe things that you didn't enjoy as much that you would love to see changed in the new one.
So we mentioned this in the anniversary video as well. But for me, I never really understood the concept behind the weapon breaking system. If they're going to give you so many, like they're literally showering you with weapons the whole game. And I feel like if they're going to go ahead and do that, then what's the point of even them breaking if you're just going to get them replaced anyway? Yep. So I feel like they can just give you like one weapon of every type along your way, to completing the game, and just have them last forever. Like I don't know. That's my opinion. Just have less of a headache in terms of managing, I guess, your weapon inventory. Yeah,
I think one thing about that too is like it's like I would have been fine if it was just for like that Master Sword challenge they had in the DLC. Yeah. Like that's when the weapons break. And then all of a sudden you get in there and you're like, oh my God, wait, why don't my weapons last forever? Oh, this is insane. But throughout the whole game, it's like, I get it at the beginning. It's like this sense of survival that worked for like the twigs and spears you found. But if I'm finding a full steel sword in Hyrule
Castle, those fiery swords,
like,
it broke on a rock.
What? Like, and maybe they make it so like, like you said, it broke on a rock. Maybe that's how it breaks. But like if I'm chopping enemies up, I expect the thing to last, or at least give me a chance to repair it.
Yeah, and then the big change I would want to see is just more traditional dungeons. I don't think the Divine Beast thing was a complete flop, but definitely does not even hold a candle to, we look at dungeons in Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, or, any of the other 3D Zelda games. I feel like the absence of those dungeons takes a little bit away from the identity of the series.
Yes.
While the game was really good, obviously Breath of the Wild's a masterpiece of a game. If it had those dungeons, like those traditional Zelda dungeons in there, like it would have been a complete game, and I wouldn't really have had any complaints other than slight nitpicks. Like the weapon thing that I just talked about is a nitpick. Like that, they don't even have to do that for the game to be incredible.
No, they don't.
It's just a
you get
small
used to
thing.
You get used to that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and I think the thing with the dungeons too, it's like I see where they were going with the shrines, but then you got to the Divine Beasts and they were just bigger shrines.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, wait, hold up. You just gave us like 1,000 shrines to discover in this area, and then the main boss of this area is to just do a big giant shrine and then fight a boss. It was fine, it was okay. They were a little more complicated than the shrines. Definitely had you thinking more, and the boss fights were fun, but it did take away that bit of identity, and I guess that's what they were trying to reimagine Zelda. I get it. Brand new game, really wanting to take the image and change it into something new. They did keep songs, sound effects, hearts, the Master Sword and stuff, but it's like, you can't take my dungeons though. You can't take my dungeons away.
I know.
Because the Divine Beasts could have been dungeons. They could have been better done dungeons, and I would have been fine with that. Yeah. That too. They didn't have to be big shrines. They could have been dungeons, and I would have been like, cool, we got 4 big dungeons and then little mini dungeons of the shrines, and then that would have been fun. I think the other one thing, and you might hopefully agree with this, is because we talked about it before, was the lack of reward for exploration. And I think that comes down to the weapon system breaking, because you could explore somewhere and you find a really cool weapon. I'm not going to be able to keep it though. Eventually, it's going to break on me. It's not like Skyrim where I can go find an epic Daedra weapon at the top of a mountain and get to keep that for the rest of my gameplay. It's just not like that. And it's fun to go and find like maybe hidden enemies. Like you'll find, oh my goodness, I can't even remember the name of the giant Minotaur like things.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
You were talking about, it's escaping me, but it's like, you go to an area like, whoa, they're hiding up here. This is a cool little fight. But exploration is something I'd love to be rewarded more, because the means of exploring are really fun. Gliding around, climbing walls, really well done. It feels great.
Right.
But I didn't feel reward for going around and doing that as much.
I agree. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, there you have it, guys. those are our thoughts on what we would like to see in the sequel of Breath of the Wild. Let us know in the comments what you would like to see, and if you agree or disagree with us. Make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more Breath of the Wild 2 news, videos, and everything gaming as well. I'm the Platinum Chin, here with the homie Goresh. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope to catch you next time. Have a nice day.